Uh, so we don't have many students today. Are you guys tired? Okay, let me tell you a story to show you professors are tired as well. So last night, I need to travel to Taichung for a meeting. So I drove to Taichung at noontime for the meeting. After meeting, I drove back home. When I was at home, it was already 8 p.m. That's the time I can take a shower and have dinner. And also, I need to check my daughter's homework. So an hour later, I finish shower, dinner, and my daughter's homework. I need to work on some proposal review. The deadline has passed, so I need to quickly complete it. So starting from 9 p.m., I started to work on that review process. And my daughter and my wife started to have a fight. They argue about some homework. So I had to work inside a crazy environment. On the background, my daughter and my wife are fighting, and I have to work. So I couldn't concentrate on my work. So I drove to the school to continue my work. So it was already 10 p.m. So I stay in my lab, work until probably 2 a.m. So I really need to take a nap. I slept in my office until 6 a.m. So this morning, 6 a.m., I woke up again. I restart my review until now. So it's my tiring life. So if your life is more tiring than mine, you can take a rest. Otherwise, pay attention to the lecture. Okay? So, in today's lecture, we're talking about something called exception. So, what is this about? Usually, exception is going to be used with try. Try something, except something else. So what does try except mean in Python? In the past few weeks, you already learned some programming codes. Sometimes you type something wrong, or the process gives you some error at the end. When there's error, your program stopped. Python stopped. So try, the function try, allows you to try something. If there's error, it will immediately jump to except. So whenever there's error inside try, it will jump to except immediately. So usually inside this except, you can handle something, you can provide a message for usually like an error message. Okay? So, in this following example right here, it's trying 3 lines of codes. The first one is a definition of variable A using input with a common input value right here. So after this line, in the command window, you need to type in some value. So A equals to that value you provide, but it will be a string, right? So right here, you can use int to convert that to integer. You can convert that to integer. And supposedly, you can print it. You can have this integer summing 1 and print out the result. However, if you didn't provide something that can be converted to integer, for example, you provide a character, for example, A or B, and that cannot be converted to a number. So right here, when you try to print, it's not something that can be done. Okay, you just cannot convert a text into a number. So something will happen, some error will happen right here. Then it will jump to exception right here. And since you understand what kind of issue could be happening, so if there's an error in this procedure, something must be wrong. And you, as a programmer, you usually know what would be the possible error that could be happening. So usually, programmers will use exception to provide error message. So right here, in this example, it's printing, you can only use so this is just telling you about the string error, right? And it's giving away certain sentence. Okay, you can only, I don't know. Right here it's telling you concatenate. Concatenate means you can only put strings together, not numbers with strings. So let's see what will happen. Okay, so there's an example. The example that is actually showing right here. So if we run the code, and if we give a number, 10, well, 10. How come the font is weird? Okay, anyway. If you give a number, then it works okay. But if you run it again, and if you type in a text, then something happened. So let's go through what happened using debugging mode. Let's debug right here. So if I run it by the debugging mode, at the beginning, in this particular line, it's asking, oh, sorry, I want to go back to, okay, so when you run this line, it tells you to input a value. If I say 10 right here, sorry, let me restart this again. Okay, restart. So from here, just run current line. Okay, running this line. If I type in 10 right here, and if I check my variable, A is actually a string. It's containing 1 and 10. Okay, it's containing 1 and 10. And if I run one more line, A equals to integer A, it converts the string into integer. So when you print, this is an integer summing another integer. So as a result, you have 11. It's a successful code. Okay. However, if I run the code again, this time I'm going to type in A right here. Again, small a is a string of capital A. If I want to convert capital A into integer, actually it won't work. It actually creates error. Okay? So as you can see, when there's error, it will directly jump to exception here. So whatever you do right here will be wrong afterward. Okay? So right here, the message created by TA is shown here. Okay? Or right here, I probably will say cannot convert string to integer if not convertible. Yeah, something like that. That's easier to understand. Okay, so let's run again. If I type B, as a result, it just tell you cannot convert string to integer if not convertible. Okay? So you can do multiple lines in exception. You can also say, for example, I can do something else right here. I can just say, okay, A equals to 10. And I can say print A plus 1. So if there is something wrong, I just replace A by 10. Something like that. And let's run the code to see. How about let me use B instead of A, because it will be a string. What do I do? Oh, we can only use one line for exception? Really? Okay. Let me just try it. Oh, for exception, you can only use one line. Does not match any outer indentation. Yeah. It should have proper indentation. Otherwise, Python doesn't recognize it. So now, if something goes wrong, I just say A equals to 10, and then I print A plus 1. Okay, so this code is just to prevent if someone type in something that is not a number, then I change A to 10. Let me run the code. So if I type in 10, if I type in 9, the result is 10 because 9 plus 1. So if I run the code again, if I say B, it will tell you, oh, it cannot convert B into a number, so we will define A as 10 by ourselves and provides a result of 11, something like that. Okay, so make sure you have proper indentation right here. Otherwise, if they are not aligned properly, sometimes you will see error message. Okay? So please practice. Try, except. Please practice try, except. And make sure you your code generates some kind of error. So it jumps into except. So the result inside except will be executed. So what will happen if there's a mistake inside except? Let's try it. So if I make the same mistake again, what will happen? Let's try to screw up Python. So if I run, this time I will say A, so it will jump into except. Let me see. Okay, then it will directly give me error message from line 7. Because in try, let me show you in the debug mode. So over here, I run the code. I say, let's use capital B, okay? So my small a is a string of capital B. Now I try to convert capital B into a number, but failed. It's cannot be converted. So it will jump to except. Over here, I use the same line again. I try to convert capital B into a number. So obviously, it will provide error. So at the end, it directly finishes the code with error message. So finish at line 7 and cannot continue. The code cannot continue. Okay? So inside try, you have one chance to make a mistake. When the error happens, it jumps to except. But inside except, you cannot make the same mistake. You cannot make mistake again, otherwise your code will stop. Okay? So this is just for you to know. Sometimes when you play with programming, the best way to learn is to be curious about what will happen and try it by yourself. Once you try once, make sure you try the code with debugging mode. Because from the debugging mode, you can see how the line goes to the other line and goes to the other line, and how the variable changes. Okay? Make sure you learn how to do debugging mode. How to debug? Let me remind you again. Move your mouse next to the index number, the line number. There's usually a red circle next to it. Click next to the number, you will see a red circle right here. That means you want to break at line 2. So usually you run the code by this green triangle to run the code. But for debugging mode, you will use those blue buttons. There is a blue triangle to represent debugging mode. Basically, you will run the code, but it will stop at the breaking point, like this one. It will stop right here. If you stop somewhere inside the code, you can debug. You can figure out where is the problem. Okay? And there are some other buttons. The second one means run the current line and move on to the next line. So usually when you stop, you want to run the code line by line. So you can click on the second button here. So like one click here, this one runs the input. So I give a number inside the command. Then it will move on to the next line right here. You can continue to click on the second button to move line by line. And from here, you can already see when I complete the first line, my variable explorer already have some data inside. So this is how you can debug. You can understand what happened inside your code. Okay? If you are just a beginner for programming or Python, debugging is important. Okay? Just for you to know how to debug. Did you already try it? Try this code? Okay, does it work? Does it work? Okay, I hope it works. Okay, good. If not, I will give you a lot of time, so don't worry. So let's continue to see what's going on in the presentation. So one thing we're learning today is try and accept. Try and accept. So this was the accept. And in accept, there are many different kinds of accept. So from the Python, whenever there's error, actually errors are categorized into different types. So you can even ask the code to run different kinds of exception for different kinds of error types. So over here, there are two examples. One is the type error, the other one is name error. Okay? So what is a type error? There usually is a code that only works for certain type of variables. So if the variable is not the correct type, then that kind of error is under the category of type error. And the other one is the name error. So when a variable has not been defined, undefined, then you must have chosen the wrong name of the variable. So it's categorized as name error. Okay? So we can try those in the Python code. If I change print to B, print A plus 1 to B plus 1, definitely it will become a name error because B was not defined. So right here I'm adding another line. I'm gonna say except, and I'm gonna say name error. Name error. So whenever there's name error, I should come to here. So over here I'm gonna say print, and I will say undefined variable. I'm gonna say this. Okay. So this has to be the last one. So this is like if else. Okay. So usually for computer codes, this is like a if logic, but this is try logic. And when try logic ends with error, it goes to except logic. But if you have unique kind of, specific kind of except, what Python did was it ran through each kind of except until it's satisfied. So what happened is there's an error happening in the beginning. It will start to check whether the error type satisfies this kind of except. And when you say except without any specific kind, basically all kinds of errors jumps into this category. However, if you want a specific kind of error, for example, name error, this has to be above. Siri, I'm not talking to you. No. I didn't call her. So when you are looking for a specific kind of except, it has to be happening earlier. So I will show you by debugging mode, then you can understand better. Now let me move this part to here. Then this code is correct. Okay? And let me run the code. So now we have two kinds of except. The first kind is when we have name error. The other kind is in general. All kinds of error. I will run this part. So let's run the code. I will just give a number 10. And it ends up with undefined variable. What does that mean? That means my code jump into line 6. Why? Let's use debug mode to figure out. So let's run the code again. Run the first line. I provide a number. So small a is a string of 10. It can be converted to integer. So let's move on to the next line. But this time I try to print b plus 1. b was not defined. So if I run this line, actually, in Python, there's an error, and it's categorized as a name error. So now, it's under the error mode. So if I run one more line, it will start to search for exceptions. So in this line, it will check, is the current error in the category of name error? So if yes, run the code inside. That's why we jump into this part. And this line will be executed. Once this line is executed, everything finishes. The bottom part right here won't be executed. So you can have a lot of kind of excepts, but only one of them will be run. So let's continue to see what will happen after this. So basically finished. Okay? So let me return this back to A, and let's run the code again. Now I run the code. This time I give a number of 10. Oh no, not yet. I run the code and give a number of 10. So for this case, string 10 can be converted into integer. So, sorry, I run the code twice. Sorry, let me run again. I now give a number of, I run the code and give a number of 10, and then it can be converted into a value, an integer, and it can be printed. So once it's printed, nothing happened, no error. So the code finishes. Okay? And let's try this code again, and let's try to give input of a string b, which cannot be converted. So over here in this particular line, an error will happen. So when I click, you will see it's actually so-called the value error, invalid. It's not valid for the input. So which means the character b basically cannot be converted into numbers. Okay, so this kind of error is categorized as value error. So let's see what will happen on the Python code. when we move one more line, it first jumps to this line. So in this line, it's gonna check, is the current error type the same as name error? If not, move on. So in this case, it's not name error. So it's going to move on. So I'm gonna click one more time. You can see it jumps from this except to the next except. And in this particular one, I am using except in general. So exception, all kinds of exception. So as long as there's an error message, it will bump into this portion. Okay, so that's why when I click one more time, it jumps into the line. Okay, and that's why over here it's going to complete what was written right here. Okay. So is that easy to understand? Now let me show you what are the possible error types. Over here there's a list. So name error. Name error is for whenever you specify a variable but that was not defined. So the name of the variable was incorrect. So name error. Okay? Index error. For example, if you have a vector in the length of 5, but you decide to pick up the 6th one. However, the variable only have a length of 5. So index error. So index value that is larger than the size of the variable. Type error, usually wrong variable type. For example, earlier we tried to convert the string into number. However, a character cannot be converted into a number. So the type of data is having mistakes. Syntax error, usually it's about how you program a line, and maybe a line was not written in the right. Syntax is like a language. You didn't write the language, you didn't write the code in a certain grammar, so Python can understand it. So syntax means you didn't write it understandable. So value error, we already mentioned, so incorrect values. Okay. Keyboard interrupt. So if you manually terminate the program, then it's actually one error type. It's called a keyboard interrupt. So whenever you manually terminate the program, you can, at the last moment, you can run something, right? When you have a manual termination. For example, turn off the computer. If you terminate my code, I will turn off the computer, something like that. Okay, assertion error. I'm not sure what it is. The condition following the program assert does not hold. It's not common. Key error does not. Key error is like a, maybe for the dictionary, you cannot read the key. Let me see if that's. Let's see it. Let's try key error. We can say. Okay, so right here, if I show you, okay, before this one, I'm going to hide this part of the code. How to comment? I forgot. How to comment? I forget. 100%. Star sign. How to comment? No. How to comment? How to comment? Oh. Sharp. Okay. Thank you. I didn't program enough. Okay, thank you. So in this case, in general, I'm going to say something's wrong. If there's a mistake, I'm gonna say something's wrong. So over here, I have a dictionary with keys of A and B. But when I print, I want to print out the dictionary with a different key, C. So supposedly, something's wrong. And originally, if I didn't specify any kinds of error, in general, it will show something's wrong. So let me try it. As a result, something's wrong. Right here. I should try this. Yeah. Okay. So remember, when you try to show a sentence and you want to use this, then the way to have a string of this dot right here is to have this double quotation to define the entire string. So at the middle, you can have this single quotation to represent S. Okay? So if you have single quotation all the way, then Python could be confused by how you define the string. So one way to show this dot right here is to use a different kind of way to define the string. So over here you can use this double quotation. Okay, so when I run this code, we don't have a key of C. So error will happen and we will bump into this exception code. Now, if I turn on this unique kind of exception, which is specifically for key error, I know this kind of error will end up with key error. So when I have key error, I want to print unknown key, not something's wrong. So if I run the code again, the result is unknown key right here, not something's wrong. If I use a debug mode, if I use a debug mode to show you what happened, when I try to print this, actually Python knows it's a key error. That's why when it's checking the exception, if it's key error, it will do this. It will jump into the line under key error. Okay? So let's go back to the PowerPoint. We have something else. Zero division error. Basically, you are doing some math and you divide something by 0. If you divide something by 0, mathematically, it cannot be calculated, especially for computers, because the result is infinity. So it's an error for computers. Attribute error. Right now we didn't talk about attributes, so maybe we skip. Indentation error. Okay. Earlier we had this indentation error. Let me show you what happened. Because for Python, you need to align your code properly. So in this first example, if I didn't align the code properly in this line 3, I add one more space right here. This is an indentation error. Actually, it's already giving you some hint. If you write a code right here, say except, and say indentation error, and say print align properly. So if you run the code, it doesn't allow me to bump into here. So let's hold on. Let me check. Try Python. Try except indentation error. Okay. Except indentation error. Have to be the same level. You need to. Okay, so indentation error is too fundamental for Python. If there is indentation error, it doesn't even allow you to run the code. So it doesn't make sense to write except indentation right here because Python doesn't allow you to have a script like this. So you can never reach to this point when there's indentation error. So do not make mistakes based on your incorrect indentation. Okay? Indentation means jumping to here. This is indentation. And they need to be aligned perfectly. Okay, what's next one? I/O error, unbound local error. I think they are not very common at this point. Okay, so now we understand there are many different error types, and we can write codes with different types of errors. So we already go through this. Okay, so here we are introducing something called assert. Okay, so assert is like okay, let's try this code, but I will show you in English. Another example with different codes for a different purpose. Okay, so now I'm gonna use the exact same one here. So A equals to input, integer, input. I'm gonna say provide a number from 0 to 9. something like this. Okay? And here I'm gonna use if logic. If A is a value that is larger than 10, that means this user didn't provide a value ranging from 0 to 9. It's giving me a number larger than 10. So I want to immediately give incorrect message. So here you can directly say assert, and you can directly provide false as like a negative response to this code. And then afterward you can have a string. You can say out of range. Okay? And then you can after this you can print A. Besides out of range kind of error, you can have exception, and you can print, that would be some other kind of error. It's not because of out of range. Then over here you can say, usually the error is you are not providing numbers. So you can say not a number. Okay, so this is a different way to let computer know something's wrong, and you know specific type of error. That's why you use assert clause to tell the computer something's wrong. And this is the message you will provide to the computer. So let's run the code and see what happens. Now if I give a number of 5, 5 will be printed. Okay? That means the number was not larger than 10, so it was a correct input, and I was able to print out 5. If I run the code again, if I say 10, this time it will hold on. No, not correct. Did I make a mistake? Okay, and then let's see what happened. Run the code again. If I say 10, oh, it didn't even reach here. Why is that? If I say 10, right here. Oh, I need to try the debug mode. Sorry. Debug mode, I give 10. So if A is a value of 10, so next line, yes. Suppose it's gonna interrupt the. Oh, sorry. This is called the assertion error. See, assertion error out of range. Okay. But right here, I was using, in general, I'm gonna do this. So I should say except right here and use an assertion error. So for assertion error, I could be so this message is hidden. Okay, if it doesn't show for it won't be shown if you have exception. So if I do nothing here, if I say print, it was out of range. Okay? So if I run the code directly, and if I say 10, you will say it was out of the range, out of range. So this message was shown. So how come this out of range was not shown? Because this is to give comments to assertion error, but the message underneath assertion error won't be shown directly. This will be only shown in the debugging mode. So if I pause right here and run the debug mode, I go one line and say 10. Over here, because of this line assert false out of range, you can see it's under the cat. This line is only shown in the debug mode, assert error, and this out of range message was created by us. So as a programmer, if you want to provide some kind of code with proper error message when someone is debugging, this is where you can give them proper message. Okay? Because of this error, it jumps to this exception. It's gonna check whether it's assertion error. If yes, then run this line. So that's why you can see it was out of range. But like I said, this line, assertion error out of range, is only shown when you are debugging. When you are running the code, this line is not shown. Okay? Now let's try something else. If I try, if I run the code and say character B, it will tell me not a number. Because in this particular first line, it needs a number. If it's a character B, it will have a I think value error, or so let's run debug mode. And if I say B right here, it's actually a value number because B cannot be converted to a number. So because of the value error, when you jump, it's gonna check whether it's an assertion error. No. Next one, in general, just say not a number. Yep. Okay? Let's try something interesting. There's no B? Okay, hold on. B, yep. No B? Let me see how can we do B. Oh, okay. Okay. In order to make your program make a sound, it's not simple. Okay, let's try this. Just for fun. Just for fun. No, there's nothing like this. I didn't have this library. How about this? Okay. Okay, it works. Just for fun, just to wake you up. Sorry. What happened? I typed in this keyboard interrupt. So if you use Control C, you can interrupt the keyboard. So I guess the duration was too long. Make it shorter. Okay. So over here, when I use this input, I didn't type in anything. I use the keyboard to interrupt my code. And when I was in the keyboard interrupt error type, I want the computer to make a beep. And I just Google for how to make a beep. There's an example code. You just import some library. You can define the frequency and duration. So I guess I can reduce the frequency. Otherwise, it's too terrible. So let's try again. Are you ready? So I interrupt myself again. Okay. So if the frequency is low and duration is short, you don't even hear anything. Let me try again. Okay. That was the frequency 200 and duration 100 sound. Okay, so from here you can see Google can teach you so much. We have never learned how to import. We don't even know there's a library called WinSound. But informations are from the internet. Okay? Okay. We have tried this. We have tried assert error. Okay. There's a raise. Raise means jumped out of the interrupt if loop with raise. Enter a value that is not a number. Oh, so raise just jump out of the, okay. So what will happen if we don't want to provide this assertion error? What if we don't want to give this message? What we can do is just to raise. Okay. Raise here means get out of the loop, get out of the try loop. So let's try it. If I say 10 this time, it will be not a number right here. So let's use the debug mode to see what happened. Let's run the debug mode already, and I will provide a value of 10. Over here, because the value is within this range, it will jump into this line, and over here, it sees raise. It will directly jump out. So this message was never touched. This line was never touched. Because of raise, it jumped out. Okay? So raise is a line for you to jump out of the try. Okay? And it will become a runtime error. Runtime error.
So because it is a runtime error, so it will go into this general exception. So show not a number right here. Okay. So that's race. How about the other one? For exception, you can also have else. You can also have else. And finally. So it's like something you will also do. Oh no, something you will be doing if the exception was not found. But eventually you will do something. So let's try else and finally. So over here I can say else, but this time I will maybe I change this one to else. And finally I will make a beep. No matter what, at the end I will make a beep. Okay, so this one I just get rid of it. Hashtag. Okay, so let's predict what's gonna happen. If there's assertion error, it will jump into this line. So since it's under the category of assertion error, this line will be run, so it won't be going to else. However, finally, it's like at the end of everything, this should be run. So supposedly, if we have assertion error, we will see this one and we will hear a beep. Okay? How can we have assertion error? We don't want this race. Without race, we will bump into this assertion error. So let's run the code. So if I have 10, I should see it's out of the range and beep. See, it was out of the range and beep. So what happened was, over here, this gives me assertion error. Because of the assertion error, this line was run. And finally, everything at the end, we do this. Okay? Let's use debug mode to figure out what happened. Here, I run this line and I give a number of 10. Because it's within this if loop, we jump into this line, and this line makes sure it's an assertion error. And because we are in the debugging mode, we see this. It's an assertion error and it tells you it's out of range. So then we move to here to check, is it assertion error? Yes. If it's assertion error, we will do this. So jump into this logic, and this line will be run. Once this is run, it directly jumps into this finally. So whatever left will be executed inside finally. So after this, we hear the beep. Okay, that would be the end. Okay, what if I want to see else? That means I don't want to have assertion error. So that means when I provide input, I don't want to give an integer. I just give some string. So when I give some string, it will be some other kinds of error. It's not assertion error. So when it's checking, it will bump into else. So under else, this line will be print. And at the end, finally, you hear a beep. So over here, if I provide a character, you will see not a number and a beep. So let's try it. I just type in B. Okay, it's else. It shows else. So hold on. It is not exactly what I expect. So not exactly what I expect. Let me see what happened. So right here I provide a character. Okay, it's a value error, and then move on to exception, not assertion error. Oh, directly. So else was not tried. So when can we see else? So after except, the program under, when can we see, when can we see else? So maybe I need this. Okay, let me try it. Run the code, provide a character. I have value error. So it's not assertion error, not keyboard interrupt. Else was not executed. So maybe I should have, I guess I need except. Print. Something's wrong. Okay. So let's run the code again. I type in the character. This is error, value error this time. Is it assertion error? No. Is it keyboard interrupt? No. Except it should be under the category of except. So jump into here, print something's wrong, and then final. So when can we see else? Okay, I got it. If I say raise here, okay, if I say raise here, and if I don't make a mistake and I say raise, so here I will say nothing was wrong. Okay, let's see. I believe this works. So I run the code. I run over here, but this time I give a true number, 10. So this doesn't give me an error. And I directly say raise. Because of raise, it will jump out of the try loop. So I'm not sure. It's not assertion error, not keyboard interrupt. Is it going to be underneath except? Yes. So when can we use else? Right here. Try. So it's not race. So I want to see when the else can be used. Run the code. 9. Okay. So when try works, else will be shown. Okay. So try something. If it's correct, then you don't jump into exception. That's why else will be wrong. But it sounds like similar to the purpose of final. But anyway, let's show. Thanks for the comment. Let's run the code again. This time I give a number of 9. Oh, how come I didn't stop? Here. Debug mode. Give a number of 9. Okay, because it's a correct input, so 9 will be printed. So when this works, it won't go to except. However, it will go to else. So except all kinds of error, else do this. Okay? So else will be wrong whenever there is no error. So this line, that's why this line is executed, printed, nothing was wrong. And then finally make a beep. Okay? So this is like a combination of all kinds of mistakes, all kinds of errors, and all kinds of things that you can do. Okay? So, there's a homework for today. We want to write a program so that user can fill in the score in the command window. If the score is lower than 60, it will display fail. If it's larger than or equals to 60, it will display the score. If the input is not a number, it will display your input is not a number. Your input is not a number. Okay? So over here, it's very simple, just like what we did. Do this, okay? You don't need hints. Okay. First exercise. Try this. The second one, there's a second program. Okay, try both. Write two. So I will modify this a little bit. So furthermore, the program will show the character grade in terms of A for larger than or equals to 90, B for from 80 larger than or equals to 80 and smaller than 90, C for larger than equals to 70 and smaller than 80, D for larger than or equals to 60 and smaller than 70, E for less than 60. Okay, so do this, write a code to do that. You will ask the user to provide a score, but it has to be in the format of numbers. Okay? And then if the score, so supposedly you should provide numbers from 0 to 100. So you can say from 0 to 100, right? And if the score is lower than 60, you just say fail. Okay? If it's higher or equals to 60, just display, it will display the score. And if the input is not a number, display your input is not a number. So over here, using exception, using try and exception, because when you see error that is not a number, try except is the good logic to use it. So when you see the input is not a number, just display your input is not a number. So besides those, I want you to do more using maybe if-else loop, if-else loop logic. In the range from 90 to 100, give a response of A, ranging from 80 to 90, B, 70 to 80, C, 70 to 70, D, lower than 60 shows an E. Okay? So at the end, what you should see in command window would be like, for example, provide a score from 0 to 100, and let's say you type in 56, then you will see fail, and also E, something like that. Okay, let's do this exercise. A score showing system. So I changed the homework a little bit. If you follow the PowerPoint, it's not exactly the same. I changed a little bit. But you don't need to make a lot of changes. From here you can use try except, also input, and also if else. You will combine them together. This is a very simple exercise. I will give you 10 minutes for this. Okay? When you leave the classroom, you need to show a code to the TA. I'm going to teach something else after this. So you have 10 minutes to try this and show this to TA before you go. Any questions? Should be very simple if you know what to do. So if you have no idea what to do, I give you a hint. Supposedly you should start your code with try. And at the beginning, you should use an input to get a value. So if the value is not cannot be converted to numbers, you will jump into accept and print out the error message. So if this is properly, if the number is properly provided, you will use some if-else check to determine what's the value and how you are going to print the score. Okay? So the general format of your code will be like this.
So make sure you are doing what I want you to do on the board. Okay? The assignment is a little different from the PowerPoint. I changed the topic, I changed the problem. Okay, is everyone okay? I know some of you are very good. You can help your partners.
就你有好几个，就不会只有一个，
就是要符合这个。
它衣服跟 L，
哦，所以我刚刚也是对的，因为
对你这里是对的，那你还要再多加一点，因为老师就有要求。
了解。Yeah。
Use and to separate. Okay. Sixty啦，
那个数字在哪里？
你看 FBL 我放那里。你要把你的 A 60拿掉，就换掉，你都想60，那就带。A 小60换掉，不用换掉，不用换掉。你的 A 小60对 A 带。因为如果你小60，它就不会跑进去。
要怎样？它才可以可以就
哦，对，要大一点。
到最后
还有
要大一点。还要大一点。
对啊。然后 L 大于才就80啊，然后最后如果大于都没有大于才就10倍哦。可是你有在这个，你还为什么我画给他？来，你们两个。你这样一路的不是这样吗？那你第一件事情，我今天要判断分数90到60，我要先判断它有没有大于90，还是它有没有大于60。
60吧。
好，那如果我先听你的，我第一个先判断，大于等于60，好，那如果它大于等于6的话，我就把它变成它的分数。那我就想，如果他今天大于70的话，那也是大于80的话，那你那个就是怪怪的。我今天我想写一个大于60，他会不会很高？对，所以我要怎么办？我这边要去改成他有没有大于90？第二层是。
Okay, is everyone okay?
哦，这就是第一序下。
好，那我到最后告诉你菜谱大概有60，那如果都没有的话，
就判断它。
对，那可能是这样。
Everyone okay?
Yeah。
这个要用 else， 就是它这个发生了，如果做完，他又再检查一次，又7次一次。那如果你是如果你是90分，那你不就每一行都会考一次？因为所以你这边要这个是 if 的话，这个是 else e l else e l i n e l i n。如果这个发生完了，这个就不会再跑。所以你后面每一个都是 L 都是这个 else。 Maybe an hour later.
Okay, if you are done, just take a break or help your neighbors. We have one more thing to introduce today. So this is not the end of today's lecture. Not the end, okay? Make sure you know what to do. Help your teammate. Okay, I will give you more time to continue if you are not finished. Okay? But I need to teach you one more thing for today, which is creating your own function. So let's come back and pay attention to how to make a function. Okay? So, okay. Just one more thing I want to teach you today. Here's what I want to teach you. So give me 5 minutes. Please give me 5 minutes. Okay, please pay attention. I want to show you how to define your own function. So everyone, pay attention. Come. I will give you some time after this. So pay attention to this. How to define your own function. You can say DEF as defining a function. Create your own function. So over here I said define my function. So my function, the name my function is a function I'm going to create. I said bracket. I put an input right there. The input is going to be small x inside my function. So I write down something after the function. I'm going to use the input small x. And I'm going to do some math. I'm going to say y equals to x times x, basically x squared, plus 10. And print out y.
this is a very simple example of defining your own function. And underneath your code right here, this is where your main function, main code of this program. You are doing many different things. And inside what you are doing, maybe at some point, you want to use my function to do something. So over here, I'm using x. I'm going to say input, integer, input, and give a value. After I give the value, after I get the value, I save the value as big X. So this big X and the small x, they are different. Okay? Now I throw big X into my function. So whatever that's inside the big X will be thrown into my function. For this function, whatever that was sent to me becomes small x. Okay? So at the end, the result looks like this. Give a value, I said 5, it returns 35. Because 5 squared plus 10 is 35. But let's take a look at what happened inside the variable space, the workspace. Okay? So let's run the code again, but this time I'm going to run the debug mode. So I run the code, immediately it goes to line 6. So nothing happened from line 1 to line 5. Nothing happened. Because we didn't use my function yet. Here we start with line 6. Actually, I should debug from line 1. Let me show you what will happen. In line 1, it knows, okay, there's a function. If I continue, it directly jumps to line 6. Python knows line 1 is just the beginning of defining a function, but you are not using the function yet. Line 6 is the beginning of your code. Right here, I run one line and I give a number 10. From here, you can see big X become 10. Big X become 10. And I'm going to throw this 10 into my function. And let's jump into the code and see. Jump into the code. So when I jump into my function, it goes to line 1. And then from here, you see a small x was created. It's the value of 10. And it's inside this smaller function. The small x is 10. And it will run the code right here. When it's finished, it goes back. When it goes back, small x and small y disappear because the function finishes. So small x and small y are only created when it's inside the function. After the function is finished, it returns back to the main function. Okay? So, I think I can even say return. And I can say capital Y here. I'll change the code a little bit. So let's run the code again. If you pay attention, you can tell the difference. Now I run the code. From the beginning, it jumps to line 7. And I'm going to give a number 6 here. So capital X becomes 6. I'm going to throw 6 into my function. Then it jumps to line 1 and it's jumping into the code. when it jumps to line 1, there's a small x was created. And it was assigned as 6. Because from outside, I throw in input 6. And inside the code, the name of the variable is called small x. So I jump in, I realize I run the math, small y equals to x squared plus 10. Run the line, a new variable small y was created. The result was 46. I print 46, and I'm going to return the value of small y, which is 46. So I return it. Then immediately it will go to line 8. So the return value is 46. So at the end you will see capital Y becomes 46 and finishes. Okay, so if you hide your function here, basically this is a function helps you to calculate some math. I can even do more. I can say z equals to my function, and for example x plus 1. Or I can do even more, k equals to my function, and say y minus 2. I can do a lot of same math multiple times, and let's see what happens if I say 10 this time. It's gonna quickly complete all the calculation of capital Y, capital Z, and capital K, and shows the results and returns all the results. So what I need to do was to write down the function once, and I can use the function multiple times. Okay? So by defining your own function, you can use it multiple times. You don't need to write down the same code every time you need it. Understand? Okay? So for your current homework, for example, if I say something else, if I say I define and show score, and there's an input. So maybe over here I can have a if loop. If x that is larger than or equals to 60, I will print pass. And if else, I will print fail, something like that. And for the main function, I will say, for example, while input give a score. If I say integer, I want to use try. Over here I'm gonna say while capital X, or I just say, let me see what I want to say. While can I do this? Integer input give a score. Then I will just show score. Oh, sorry, this is not defined. DEF. Show score and capital X. And then I will say except. So when there is a so print, say finished. So oh, I cannot do it. I have to say while true. How about this? Oh, can I do while one? Okay, I can do that. Okay, so in this example, I will be providing scores multiple times because whenever for the while loop, it will be done repeatedly until it's not true. So if this loop doesn't break at all. However, if there's some mistake right here, it will go to exception. So one way to stop this is to stop giving a right score. So maybe I will say give n to stop. So if I want to stop, I just give n. So let's run the code. If I say 1 fail, 50 fail, 60 pass, 99 pass, and finished. Okay, so from here we already try a lot of things introduced today. I just show you how to define a way to show the score using this customized function by DEF, define. Inside this definition, inside this function, whenever I throw in a number, I will use a if-else loop to determine whether you pass or fail. Over here, I use try except to be able to provide scores multiple times until I don't want to provide a score. So over here, I hint you can give n to stop. But if you give n, input n cannot be converted to integer. So that will trigger an error. Because of the error, I will jump into except. And for the exception, I will just print finished. So if I'm not giving a number, here you will see an error. Because of the error, I will jump out of the loop. Otherwise, this continues, never stop. Every time this, if it's not stopping, every time I have a score, I will use my customized function to determine whether pass or fail. That's why over here you can see it will keep on asking me about the score, and the customized function tells you pass or fail. Okay? Until I say something that is not a number, it goes to exception. And my exception shows finished. That's everything I want to show today. Let's practice to define your own function. Okay, this one is more complex. Why don't you try this one? A simple math equation. Try it on your computer. Try to define a customized function, do some math. Try to throw some number into the function and show the results. Okay? Try to create your own function.
这行不一样，这行不一样。
这样的。因为如果你给的数字，它就是你就要写。要说这个领导对啊，然后你给他定个，然后说有闭起来。你下午3次我会看书啊。去啊，看个屁！我会没你冲的看。你要回家拿鞋。去死！还要短裤。不要少。屁呀！真的？还是你给我今天的钱，然后我来练球？啊？现在涨价了。现在都。今天3个小时700而已。不行啊！我白痴。他进攻北一是实行多少
So, for today, you need to show me the result of checking the score, showing the ABCD score. And in addition, I introduce you how to create your own function. So when you finish today, you can just show me what you did earlier. Or if you want to try something different, you can try to combine definition and what you did earlier to complete the exact same task. Okay? Just for fun. If you want to have fun. Okay? So at the end of today's lecture, I only want to see this homework before you go. You are not required to use try and accept only. You can use something else. By default, you can use what I showed you earlier, try, accept. But if you want to have fun, you can combine your own function. Just like an example here. You can create some function here and try to combine with try, accept, just for fun. So maybe this example allows you to put in scores, type in scores multiple times. Okay? In your previous exercise, you can only type in score once. But in this particular way, you can keep on typing scores. Okay? So this is not required, but if you want to practice it, it's good for you. Later on, I will teach you more about customized function. Inside, whenever you run a function, there are several tricks about running a function. That will be included in the midterm. Okay? So very important part inside the midterm is creating your own function. But I will talk about more details next time. So while you are practicing, let me check if I have anything else for today. Just one thing that was not covered, just extra knowledge. So let me say define my function 1 and say x. So over here I will do y equals to x plus 1. But over and then I will do my function 2 and put in y. And over here I will say a z. So I will return z. Okay? And I'm going to define a different function. My function 2. This time I'm using s. So whenever there's a s, t equals to s plus 2. And I will return t. Okay? And I have a main function. For example, capital X equals to integer input, give a number, and I will say capital Y equals to my function 1 and capital X return. Okay. So just I didn't show this to you earlier. So in this particular case, just very quickly to show you, you can jump into a second function when you are inside a first function. So now I'm directly running this in a debugging mode. I run it. Over here, I'm going to provide Python a number, for example, 10. Okay? So now, pay attention to the variable. Capital X is 10. I'm going to throw capital X into my function 1. So I jump into my function 1. So here I am. I'm in my function 1. I'm jumping into it. Now, because of my function 1, I have a small x. It's the value of 10. So I'm jumping into it. I'm defining a small y. Y equals to x plus 1. So at the end, y is 11. Now I'm jumping into a second function. I'm throwing y into second function. So 11 will be thrown into function 2. So I jump into function 2. That's why I'm here. This time I'm creating a new variable s. The value is 11. So when I jump into function 2, you realize the variables for function 1 disappear. It's not disappear, it's just Python doesn't show you anymore. It only shows you what you are using right now. So x is like a variable from outside, small s is like a variable from inside. So we call the global variable and local variable. So s is like a local variable, only works inside this function. Now if I jump into this small function, t equals to s plus 2, so at the end, t equals to 13. Now I return t, so t will be returned. So continue, get back to here.
because there's a return value 13, so z becomes 13. Now in my function 1, I'm supposed to return value 13. So if I continue to run it, it goes back to the original line. Now my capital Y is 13. Okay, so this is just for you to understand the flow of the code. Initially, you are in line 10. In line 11, you jump into the smaller function, like a lower level. Over here, you jump into another level of my function 2. And I use a bunch of returns to return the value back to one level above. So after all, I get a total value of capital Y. So here's one example for you to understand you can have multiple layers of functions. Okay, if you want, you can also practice this. Okay, but this is not necessary for today's homework. Just for you to understand, you can have 2 layers of functions. The main function here, you can jump into function 1 and then jump into function 2. Okay? That's everything for today. I'm not going to talk more. So there's still a lot of time for you to exercise. If you are done for your homework, now you can raise your hand to tell TA, and when the TA checked, you can go. You can either show what you did earlier, or you can combine functions to be more interesting. Okay?
打一下，打19分。
So you just need to show a result for this one for today. You can try to combine function into the same exercise. It's your own choice.
按怎么两个可以带了？多打了，然后嘞。
Yes, just show this one. Then you can go.
这样。呀。呀，肯定啊。测。啊？有啊。那我觉得要回家改一下，因为我刚自己打。这是我教的第一个这个。我是，我这。好好笑。
Yeah, that word is not necessary. My TA translates.
就不用做这个，
不用皱，
不用就做这，
不用皱，
第一题就。
Okay, so if you are leaving, please leave quietly. And if you have questions, you can come here. If not, please wait for the TA patiently. If your partner has questions, please help your partner. Does anyone feel like Python is easy? It's supposed to be easy, right?
We need to just complete and Janice, do they need to upload to the just show the TA? Just raise your hand and show her. Yeah, just complete it, show the TA, then you can go. If you want to have fun, try it with content. Okay, see you next time. We meet 2 weeks from now, right?
Yeah, next week is Friday.
And I think 2 weeks from now is our so it's just covering up to here. Janice, 之后写一封信请大家之后，然后帮你把上次那个来的因为上次但是怎么样子题目就跟他解释啊，我有一个
思考这个，然后应该会有内容。 回去会再公告。
就说把之前题目给我看一下。老师说把之前题目给我看一下。之前题库，老师说他会改。
他会改，还是我会改？
我刚刚说我们快反应完，他说他会用就用几题 demo 就好了。